Mid-price midfielders. There's so many good ones, but we can probably only have 3 or 4 in our teams. Let's rank them. We're going to look today at the mid-price midfield bracket. That is any midfielder priced 7 to 9 million, of which, by the way, guys, there are so many this season. I'm going to pull out the top 20 names in that bracket, and we're going to rank them. So we're going to be looking at tiers. Get in my team. We're going to look at, I want this player. We're going to look at, good option. We're going to look at, meh. And we're going to look at avoid. Okay, so let's look at these 20 names. I think it's easier if we work it through club by club, because then we can also appreciate the fixtures, right? So let's start with Man City first and foremost. We like their fixtures very much, at the top of all the tickers. In the first 6 games, they play Burnley, Sheffield United, Fulham and Forest. Like, that's 4 amazing fixtures with a high ceiling. I don't think Haaland alone is enough. So if we're looking at the Man City midfielders, we're going to look at Foden, Grealish. If we go off last season, then Grealish is the reliable option. So let's start, shall we, with Jack Grealish. I don't think he's a get in my team or a want necessarily. I think he's kind of middle of the road. Therefore, let's put Grealish in as a good option, right? He's kind of mid-level. He's had a little price increase, deservedly so. He should be the most nailed, but we know with Grealish, in terms of output, we don't have that explosivity that we get from, say, a Foden or a Mahrez. Foden, I think he's going to start because Kevin De Bruyne is out game week 1. Or Gundogan's left and Kovacic is playing the deeper role. Who's going to cover Gundogan? Well, maybe Foden sits into one of those positions, which is where we're more used to seeing him. I think I'll have a Man City midfielder in my game week 1 locked team. If you guys haven't already checked them out, do have a look at Fantasy Football Scout, not just for the paid for stuff. You can sign up as a member, and if you want to, there's a link in my bio to sign up. But all the free stuff, you can sign up as a free member and you get a wealth of information, which is really useful for your pre-season scouting. So, Raheem Sterling. I just want to see Chelsea attack first before I commit. I think I'm willing to commit to a Chelsea defender because it's lower risk, because it's a lower price point. Reece James, Ben Chilwell, and we know there's upside there for that risk, right? Raheem Sterling feels like you could get a load of 2-pointers, but you could also see some good explosive returns. And we just want to see how Poch sets up in what we think will be a 4-2-3-1, and Sterling should be on that left-hand side. But look, time will tell. So I'm going to drop Sterling in, again, middle of the road with Jack Grealish in the good option category. But look, this is where it gets really tasty, because Arsenal have 5 midfielders ranked 7 to 8.5 actually million, and we're really surprised at that because we all thought Saka would be 9 million, didn't we? So look, let's start with the obvious. I think Saka for many is just a get in my team. He's like 50% owned already. He's pretty nailed in most people's game week 1 drafts. I think he's nailed in mine. 8.5 million on penalties, reliable minutes, good injury record, amazing fixtures. Like, they've got 4 home games, remember, in their first 6, and their first 3 fixtures are outstanding. So for me, like, backing Arsenal big, I'm happy to do that. And I'm looking at drafts of triple Arsenal attack. I really want to squeeze Martinelli in. And for me, the question is, do you go Martinelli or do you go for an Arsenal defender or goalkeeper? So it's a choice between, say, a Ramsdale and Gabriel, or a Martinelli. And my first draft had Ramsdale in, but now I'm looking at, actually, I think I want triple Arsenal attack because the fixtures are there. And yeah, they'll keep clean sheets, but the ceiling's lower. I speak about ceiling a lot, but I really do. It really does sort of play a massive part of my thinking in FPL. So Martinelli's a want, really close to a lock, but definitely a want. And Odegaard, I think, is a little bit below that. We'll say Odegaard is a good option because a little bit more perhaps of a steady, consistent player than what we might see from Martinelli, and the price reflects that. But last year, when we look at the numbers, both these guys, Martinelli and Odegaard, were in the top, I think, 6-7 players for overachieving with their output. So we know they're not getting a ton of chances, but the chances they get, they're actually doing really well. So when you compare their expected goals total, what they should have scored compared to what they did score, I think Martinelli ranks 3 in the league. Only Kane and Haaland outperformed him with efficiency in terms of finishing, overachieving their expected. And I think Odegaard's around 6th or 7th. So both these guys are elite finishers. That's the summary, right? But I feel that Martinelli will have more shots in the box and more goal scoring opportunities this season than Odegaard. And I wonder how Havertz in that midfield alongside Odegaard will affect Odegaard going forward. Maybe he'll have to drop a little bit deeper at times when Havertz goes. When one goes, the other one sits a little bit. They'll be the number 8s in that team, and there'll be a number 4, a DM, whether that's a Partey or a Jorginho behind them. Let's talk about Havertz, because he's in that number 8, and it is that Xhaka role he's going to be filling, I think. And Arteta has spoken about how Havertz has come in to be a midfielder. I think Havertz is less of an FPL option this season, and actually at 7.5 million, I'm just not interested at all. This could prove me wrong. You guys will know if you watched me last season. I love Havertz. But he's an avoid. And then it's Trossard. Again, this is a brilliant FPL asset on his day. We saw that at Brighton. But like Havertz, it's occupying an Arsenal spot for someone that we don't know enough about. I mean, we know that he's not in the first choice 11, and last season will show us that. Good impact sub. And Martinelli might lose some minutes to Trossard in terms of Martinelli coming off in the 70th or 80th minute. But in terms of starts, Martinelli is pretty nailed, and therefore Trossard is benched. Trossard, remember, can stand in if Jesus gets an injury, and then Trossard could become a really good option, because Trossard and Martinelli will share the number 9 responsibilities, or Nketiah is like for like, but Trossard is an avoid for me. So look, that's our Arsenal assets spread all over the chart. But now let's look at Spurs, because there's Kulusevski, who we've forgotten a bit about because he was injured at the end of last year a lot. There's Maddison, new signing, lots to be excited about, and of course we have to always consider Heung-min Son. He's had the biggest price drop going. The fixtures in the first 6, they played Burnley, Sheffield United, Brentford and Bournemouth of 4 of their 6 fixtures. So actually the fixtures are quite comfortable. They're quite nice. It's a good start for Ange Postecoglou. So Son is obviously the most exciting because we know what he can do in FPL. But he's far from a lock in my team, and I don't know if I feel a little bit meh about him, but I think I'm going to go a little bit better than a meh, right? He's a good option because of the price point. Last season was completely a meh or an avoid, but we're going to bump Son up to mid-level, and he's a good option because we know what he can produce on his day. But I am feeling a little bit meh about some of... are you guys getting sick of me saying that yet? I am feeling a little bit like that with Kulusevski. And I think with Maddison too. I thought Maddison was going to be a game week 1 bandwagon. And look, that could change as we start seeing more and more pre-season fixtures, and we see Maddison and when he scores goals and gets assists and we go, actually, we really like him. But at the moment, because I don't quite know how Spurs are going to set up with him in the midfield, or will he be in the attacking right position where he was at times at Leicester and then allowed to drift into the 10, or will he be converted to one of the number 8s, because Postecoglou does play with 2 8s that take up advanced positions to try and get in the box and score goals. That's what we saw at Celtic. But I don't know if Maddison's got the defensive responsibility to play 8. So I'm a little bit meh on both Kulu and Maddison. Look, 7.5 and 7 million respectively, they're good price points. I thought Maddison would be 8 and I thought Kulu would be 7.5. So it's generous. But at the moment, if I'm going Spurs, it's for Harry Kane, or at a push Son, or at the back, it's for Pedro Porro. They're my 3 Spurs assets that I'd put on my watch list, none of which are in my team at the moment. Liverpool, again, players for the watch list, because if we know they're nailed, they're the most exciting assets because they're mid-priced and they are playing for a team that scored tons of goals. So someone like Jota, if we knew he was nailed, 8 million midfielder playing number 9 where he could play, or wide left where he could play, we like him. But at the moment, I see Jota as someone that might be first sub, coming on off the bench. And in 30 minutes of Jota, you get a ton of chances, but you need, if you're spending 8 million, a starter. And therefore Jota, despite the fixtures being okay, Bournemouth in game week 2 is the week we all want Liverpool cover, and I don't think many of us are going to have it. That's why a lot like Salah captaincy is a shout game week 2. But Jota, he's on my radar, but until we know he's nailed, I'm going to put Jota and Luis Diaz in the same category as I put Maddison and Kulu. All 4 of them are under the meh umbrella, unfortunately, because we just don't know enough about them yet. And Luis Diaz, I think, could be a starter, by the way. I think he plays on the wide left and Hakpo in the number 9. But even if he's a starter, I think he's coming off a lot in games. So for me, I'm swerving those 2 Liverpool assets. I'm not putting them as a void, though. At the moment, we've got in the avoid category just Havertz and just Trossard. But there is more to come in terms of getting my team and avoid both at the top and bottom of the chart. So let's move on to Man United, because a bit like Arsenal, wealth of options. wealth of options, and this mid-price midfield bracket at United, there are 5 options to consider. So the 7 million guys, Sancho and Antony and Mount, and then you've got 8.5 Bruno and 9 million Rashford. And I think Rashford is a get in my team lock. I really do. Like, I think there's 3 players in the game that are locked in my Game Week 1 team, completely locked, and should be in many. And it's Haaland, and it's the 2 midfielders, Saka and Rashford. I don't think we need to talk about why I want Rashford, but let's compare him and Bruno a little bit, because there is 0.5 between them. So the numbers last season suggest that spending an extra 0.5 on Rashford is worth it. At times, Bruno was unlucky and the expected numbers were good. But as I said earlier in this video with Havertz and Odegaard, I wonder if Havertz's addition means him and Odegaard are both playing in similar roles, number 8s, and they're both, therefore, going to have the similar attacking output, a bit like Mount and Bruno. And with that, does that mean Odegaard and Bruno are slightly weaker as FPL options and slightly deeper? Now, that's brilliant FPL options in their own right, but it's when we compare them to their teammates we have problems. Because Odegaard at 8.5 and Bruno at 8.5 are brilliant options. But if Saka and Rashford are around and the same prices or 0.5 more, it's worth the extra. So I'm going to go and start with Rashford as a get in my team lock, and then we're going to look at Bruno and say he's a player I want. He's just off a lock, but he's not quite there just yet. So Bruno just in that tier below. Mason Mount slightly below that though. We're going to rank him as a good option alongside Odegaard and Jack Grealish and of course Son and Sterling. So there's 5 good names in that good option category now. I'm really excited about Mason Mount at Man United, not as a Chelsea fan. I'm gutted to see him go, but as someone with an FPL hat on, I think he could be a good option. Sancho and Antony, the prices are right, 7 million, the prices are right. Antony's a better option because Ten Hag will give him more minutes and likes him. He bought him over from Ajax. He knows how good he is. He said to the club, spend all this money on him. Sancho, a little bit further down the pecking order. If Rashford plays wide left and they buy number 9 and Antony's on the right, then Sancho's not in that 11. So I think we're going to put both of them in a void for the time being. Eyes are on them, and eyes are on all 20 of these players, but they're both avoid assets for me. So unfortunately, those United players at the bottom of the list there. But look, Mason Mount and Bruno give us good secondary options to Rashford. A Mount at 7 million is cheap. I think that's a very good price if he clicks in this Man United team, and pre-season is going to help us with that. Guys, by the way, if you do want to join my mini league, then please do. Loads have been coming in, and it's the first season I've ever had a mini league, and literally set it up a few days ago, and there's already hundreds of you guys in there. So ideally, I want this to be mainly for my YouTube subscribers. So obviously, you're subscribing in your numbers, which is awesome. But yeah, join my mini league and see how you get on against me this season. And look, we've been looking at the big clubs, haven't we? Like, we've been looking at all the clubs you would expect to have midfielders in the 7 to 9 million bracket. But we haven't looked at West Ham. And West Ham do only really have one exciting FPL option, and that is Jarrod Bowen. And if we look back to at times last season, but certainly the season before that, there was a time when Jarrod Bowen was locking everyone's team. 7 million's good value. He's the talisman at that club. He plays just off the striker, sometimes quite wide, but still in a lot of good shooting positions. The problem with someone like Jarrod Bowen is when you're paying that for a player that plays for a mid-table team, and I don't think that's unfair on West Ham, that score and have mid-table stats in terms of shots and goals, then you look elsewhere at other teams and you're like, oh, I can get Man City and Chelsea and Arsenal and Spurs players for the same money, and these teams have a ton more chances and a ton more shots. But when the shots and chances do fall West Ham's way, unlike, say, at Man City midfielders, because obviously Haaland, and Liverpool, if you take out Salah and Haaland, there's a huge spread of players that are in and amongst it. When you look at West Ham, it's all funneled to 1 or 2 or 3 players, and Bowen gets a lot of them. So I do like Bowen as an asset. I just worry there'll be a lot of games where West Ham don't look like they're going to score, and like you're watching the game going, I'm not going to get anything from this asset. And maybe at times you do. At least when you're enjoying the other players, you're like, oh, they're always on the ball, they're always getting shots. Now, Bowen doesn't have the penalty appeal either, which you might expect from someone when you're paying a lot of money for them from a mid-table team. And obviously Ben Rama's the penalty taker at West Ham when he's on the pitch. So I'm going to put Bowen in the meh category just because of the team he plays for and the output they create. That's not to say mid-table teams aren't worth looking at, because look, Brighton, who are mid to upper table team, they're one of the best attacks in the league and put up shot numbers up there with your top teams. Like they ranked at second or third, in my opinion, for attacking output last season. So we like some of those teams and we don't discard them, but West Ham at times under Moyes can be a little bit boring and a little bit counter-attacky, and with that, you just don't get a ton of chances and it's low XG. So that completes our list of 20. Let me know, guys, in the comments which ones you agree with. There'll be a few, and which ones you disagree with. So let me know in the comments, guys. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Appreciate all your support this pre-season, and I'll see you very soon.